Hi everyone. Sorry it's taken us a little while to make this video, but we wanted to share a little bit about what we've learned so far with travel nursing.
We're obviously not experts. We're just starting. My first day is actually tomorrow, so haven't even started yet. But just some of the preliminary stuff wanted to talk about and share kind of our experience a little bit.
We sort of split it up into categories of housing, onboarding and contracts, and then just another little note at the end of something.
So housing, it might be one of the trickiest things, especially for someone who has pets. We have 2 cats, which we love, but it's hard to find a furnished place where someone is willing to let your cats run all over their furniture.
And since the contracts are 3 months most commonly, you really need to find short-term housing and furnished housing, which can be slim pickings. And one of the other things that we encountered is commonly when you rent a house, an apartment, whatever, the landlord or the homeowners might want to do a credit check. And when they asked us here, we started to think about how that could actually be significant if we had to have a hard check done every 3 months potentially. That could significantly lower your credit score over time. And so we were able to just do a soft credit check, but sometimes it is a hard check. So that was something significant that we know we need to ask moving forward.
The other important thing about housing we realized is one of the big bonuses with travel nursing is you often get a tax-free stipend, a living stipend that the agency gives you to help you live in the place you'll be staying for 3 months. But to qualify for that, you need to establish a legal tax home, which essentially means the idea is you're duplicating your living expenses. So you're paying for a house and then an apartment where you'll be on contract, or you're paying for an apartment back at home and then another apartment.
In order to qualify for it to be tax-free,
right?
Which obviously is pretty significant because the living stipends are typically around equal to, if not higher than, your actual hourly pay. Our landlords, the owners of this house, were incredible in being really flexible with us, which I think is something you want to look for. We have a lease written up for 3 months, but it's on a month-to-month basis, so we can end it with 2 weeks notice at any point without any negative ramifications, which with the kind of unpredictable nature of travel nursing is a big bonus. If God forbid his contract got canceled randomly just during the contract, we wouldn't be locked in to this area, to this house necessarily, which unfortunately does happen. It's not that uncommon for that to happen. So that was something that we were thankful we were able to negotiate into the contract.
One of the things we came to realize was that as a travel nurse, I'm hired through the agency and really indirectly working with the hospital. Although I'm directly there, I'll be literally at the facility, I'm not employed by them. And so the protections I have as a worker are only through the agency, and oftentimes those are pretty slim, whatever protections they give you. So we actually had our contract change, or my contract change, a few times before the start date, which we didn't realize how common that was, or that they could really do that after a contract had already been signed.
So what happened for us is that they lowered his pay twice within a 2-week period. And for them, I mean, the contract was written, it was signed, so that's essentially a break of the contract, which for the hospital and the agency, there are no negative ramifications for that. If we were to break the contract, we would suffer financial setbacks, and he would be kind of professionally penalized as well, or potentially blacklisted from the agency. So it's kind of an unfair situation in that way. But as Dan was saying, he's technically a contractor for the agency. So the agency has their own contract for their relationship with the hospital, and then we have our contract with the agency.
One of the things that we kind of felt we came away with it from was trying to work in a 2-week clause. So we were able to work it into our contract to get a 2-week clause where the hospital has to give me that much week notice before they either cancel or decrease the pay. And if they canceled the contract, they would, and they didn't want me to work, they'd have to still pay me for that 2-week period of time. So
Yeah.
that is something we had to kind of advocate for.
Yeah, we had to advocate for that ourselves. And yeah, it doesn't even necessarily have to be something that the hospital agrees to. That's something that you negotiate with the agency. So your contract between you and the agency, we were able to get that put in. And so that was, that's pretty much the extent of the protections that you can get from what we understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess going back, one thing we also found was starting this process, and we kind of had this preconception that that it would be easy to get a contract, that it would be quick, just because there's so much need. And so that wasn't exactly our experience. It took a little while to get a contract, and some of that is because Dan had just barely under a year of experience in a specialty as a nurse, but that's pretty much the standard, is at least 1 to 2 years of time working in a hospital in a specialty. And so it took us a little while to be able to get a contract. It's kind of a little more difficult than we expected to get our foot in the door.
Yeah. The other thing we wanted to talk about was training. For this hospital in particular, the hospital I'm working for is actually owned by a larger company. So I was assigned trainings both by my agency, the hospital, and the overarching agency that the hospital is owned by, all of which was online so far, and much of which there's a good chance I won't get paid for. Some of that is kind of a standard. It varies hospital by hospital from what we understand, but as far as travel nursing goes, there's often a lot of like learning modules that you get assigned beforehand that you don't always get paid for. Once you're in person, to our knowledge, that changes. If you have orientation at the facility, that should all be paid.
Yeah.
But
the onboarding, he honestly must have done at least like 20 to 30 hours worth of these online classes, modules, whatever. And they did say that they would pay for some of that, but I think it was only 10 hours worth.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that changed, I guess as you may know, was Dan's start date. He was supposed to start last Monday. He's starting tomorrow, so Tuesday. And that was kind of a weird situation. We didn't really know what was going on until a few days ago. They finally gave him the information for his first day, and so it was nice to have the time to kind of settle, explore more together before he has to start working. But that also means going another week without pay, and so you kind of have to factor in, unless you have a really flexible situation with living and your other job or your previous job, you're going to need considerable savings to be able to tide you over while you're looking for a contract. And then in the off chance that it gets canceled or the start date gets pushed back. And so that's something that we are lucky to be okay with. We have some savings that we've been able to use for this time period in between, but that's big. It's important to make sure you have savings to be able to be flexible.
This is something I've just heard before from travel nurses, but also reading online and come to experience it myself a little. It's just the importance of getting to know your agent and trying to find out if they are someone who's willing to fight for you or not. I guess I did find this out when I was first trying to get into travel nursing to actually get a contract. I still have relatively minimal experience as a nurse, and so I was told by some agents that they weren't even willing to work with me, or I needed to be more flexible. and we did try to be more flexible and became more flexible with time. But also, I had other agents. One of the ones actually I'm working with now, who kind of advocated and said, hey, I'm not sure if this is going to work, but we're going to give it a shot. We're going to go through all this and try to see if we can get a contract, and we did.
Mm-hmm.
So,
because the agents work on commission, so
right.
It's kind of a double-edged sword. They want to advocate for you. They want to get you a contract as soon as possible, but if they're not getting you a contract quickly, then they're just doing more and more work
and not getting paid
until you get a contract. So yeah, just maintaining a good relationship, finding a good agent who's willing to put the work in and be patient with you if you don't have like a perfect situation where you're going to get a ton of offers really fast, is important.
Yeah.
And then the last thing we wanted to talk about was, it obviously depends on your situation, but we're married, and I'm coming with Dan on this travel nursing adventure. And just if you are doing travel nursing with a partner or a spouse, whatever, it's something that you both have to be really committed to and on board with, because it's very destabilizing. It's kind of just crazy. You don't know what's going to happen. You have to be really flexible, and the spouse, the partner, has to be flexible too, and is put into a position of trying to find work in this very kind of niche setting where you'll be somewhere different potentially every 3 months. And yeah, it's a challenge, but it's a really great opportunity for you both to be able to travel and typically make a decent amount of money, be able to save, but you really have to make sure you're both on board because it's a lot. So.
Yeah, that pretty much sums up a lot of the things we wanted to talk about, a lot of the things we've learned so far, and hopefully you find it interesting, or pass it along to some people who are interested in travel nursing, and maybe they'll find it helpful. We don't know, but anyways, we wanted to share it.
Yeah, and it's just the beginning. I'm sure there'll be a lot more that we learn coming up with his first day tomorrow, and yeah, future contracts. We'll see.